If your partner has a rough night and makes a mess, would it make you the jerk for refusing to help clean up? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law to shut it about Bridgerton because I hate it? I, 25-year-old female, went wedding dress shopping a few days ago. It was a crap show. My fiancé is from a religious family, and it was important for him to get married at his family's church. It's not something I always wanted for myself, but his family is helping to pay for the ceremony, and this means a lot to him. The problem is that his mom insists that I get a modest wedding dress. I tried on a bunch of dresses that were modest, and I hated them. I don't like puffy sleeves. I hate looking covered up. I look like Princess Leia if she were from Alabama, not Alderaan. This is not what I wanted. It was my mom, my sister-in-law and mother-in-law, and my maid of honor at the bridal shop. They were trying to cheer me up, but I wasn't having it. My sister-in-law Peggy was the worst. She loves shows like Bridgerton. Anyone who knows me knows I can't stand that show. She kept hyping up how my dress made me look like someone from the show. After 4 or 5 dresses, I was fed up and wanted to call it quits. But she wanted me to try on one more. I snapped at her. I told her to shut up about Bridgerton, and I don't want to hear about that show again for the rest of the day. We ended up leaving after this. Peggy was upset and she and her mom just left. My mom has ticked at me and said what I did was not acceptable. I'm just frustrated because it feels like everyone is hijacking the whole wedding process and I don't even have a say about what I want. It's like this wedding is more about what Peggy and my mother-in-law want. Hope he's not the jerk, right? I think most of us can probably agree that when it comes to the wedding things, you kind of want to be able to have the wedding you want to have. Feeling like things are getting encroached on or you're being forced in one direction or another without ever even allowing you to make that decision. I mean, even outside the context of a wedding, it's a frustrating thing to experience. 3Dogs 2022 commented, "Not the jerk, but you need to slow this entire roll. Are you actually okay with getting married in this church? Is it something you're doing to make your spouse happy that you're neutral about, which is fine, or is it something that you're doing that you actively have a problem with, which is not? Assuming you're actually okay with the venue, call the administrative staff and ask if there are any formal requirements about dress for the venue. Some traditional places might, for example, not allow bared shoulders, etc. Keeping any venue requirements in mind, pick out your own dress. If you can't afford the wedding you're having without nutty bullying by the in-laws, scale back to something you can personally afford to pay for. This is not worth it." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for being totally unfair to my mom's husband's family by not showing up for a family meal? My 16-year-old female mom has been married to her husband for 7 years. My dad has been out of my life for almost as many years, but even before my mom and Ted got married, he wasn't a big part of my life. You see, my dad is mentally ill. There's a family history of it on his side of my family. He's got it bad and isn't capable of being a good dad or really a reliable person. Last I remember of him, he couldn't really take care of himself. But, and this is a big thing, I still love him and I have some good memories of him. Ted is a stepfather, I call him my mom's husband, is deserving of better or not good depending on your view overall. He provides for me, calls me his daughter, tries to spend time with me, offered to adopt me and provide for me well into the future. I said no to the adoption and didn't really let the incentive of being provided for long-term sway me. My reason for this is due to how often he talks crap about my dad. My mom lets him, so I have issues with her too. But the focus of my post is more about Ted and his extended family. Ted is always so fast to remind me that my dad chose illness over me, that he has never paid child support and has a lot of child support debt to his name. He discouraged me looking at photos of my dad or his side of the family and would tell me he was a better choice for dad and his family were a way better family. Ted's family also repeats this to me a lot. I get reminded every time I see them that Ted stuck around, Ted stepped up, Ted isn't some crazy waste of life, which is what they call my dad. Last year, it was clear I had inherited the mental illness gene. My mental illness is OCD. I got it really bad because of it. A part of me always knew I was different. I had strict rules for stuff most people didn't think twice about, like making my bed, writing, bathing, or showering. I also freaked out a lot if I couldn't make things fit okay in my school binder or books or video games on my shelf. My mom and Ted saw it too, but Mom didn't want to believe I could be ill and Ted believed his influence could prevent it. A crisis at the start of the year proved it all wrong and I got diagnosed. I spent some time doing inpatient because of how bad it got. When I got home and Ted was alone with me or my half-siblings, I would hear his family talk about me in ways that made me so uncomfortable. They said rejecting him made me sick because it pushed me more toward Dad than Ted. Ted's parents wanted to have a big family dinner yesterday and I was told repeatedly they wanted me there, by them directly and Ted and my mom. I chose not to go and I said I could not get off my planner right now, which is true. But I just knew I couldn't be around them. My mom and Ted weren't happy and they said I had no trouble going off my planner to see my grandparents, Mom's parents, or my 3 uncles and cousins. They told me I was being totally unfair to Ted's family by not showing up and treating them like they're not family. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk here, even if they haven't explicitly made their feelings known outwardly to Ted or Ted's family about how they're making OP feel. It doesn't negate OP's feelings in any way, and I think they're very valid. I especially relate as a person that isn't very outward facing, so if I have something that is a sensitive or sore topic in my life and I'm around these people who, for all intents and purposes, are strangers to me, and they keep talking about and bringing up that specific sore subject, I'm not really the kind of person that's going to go out of my way to make it known that it's frustrating me, but like OP, it would certainly influence me to not want to be around those people. AliOKK93 commented, "The chose illness comment makes me wonder if your father is also abusing drugs, because that's the gentle way of explaining it to kids." That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for losing my marbles at my neighbors for parking across my driveway? I live next door to a business and the workers keep parking across my driveway even though it's illegal. Once, someone was parked across my driveway for 3 hours and another time I was late for surgery because I couldn't get out of my house. The workers keep making noise at 4:30 a.m. and midnight even though they have noise restrictions between 5 and 7 a.m. Today when I got home, I noticed someone who has done this before was parked across my driveway. So I simply parked behind them and walked inside. About half an hour later, they came back to their car and were parked in and didn't like it. I completely lost it at them, and they told me I was a mean person and the nastiest homeowner on the street. I proceeded to call the police and formally complain to their CEO. Is this a normal reaction? To note, I have been calling the local council, police, and complaining to the organization for years. I can't afford litigation. The reason the police finally came out this time is because the parker made a threat that they would come back and do something. At least it's on the record now and not in the US, so I can't have a car towed. This needs to be ordered by the police and they're reticent to do that. Considering this is a repeat offender especially, I don't think OP's the jerk. Maybe some people would have an issue saying, oh, that's going too far, like calling their CEO or whatever. But honestly, if this is like an established character behavior for this person, isn't what they're doing actually kind of a beneficial thing for that business owner? Especially when considering it's just mildly removed from the building, it's just next door. Alpha, a bunch of numbers, commented, not the jerk. Losing your marbles was basically a public service announcement. If parking across your driveway were an Olympic sport, these neighbors would take home the gold. You try the polite route, but when your driveway becomes a parking lot, it's time to call in the big guns. At least he gave them a taste of their own medicine. This next story is, am I the jerk for not making my schedule work so my youngest stepsister could go to a party? There's some background that will provide some context about why Dad's angry at me. My mom died when I, 17-year-old male, was 7. My brother was 6. When we were 10 and 11, our dad remarried. My dad's wife came with 3 daughters. Her youngest is a half-sister to the 2 older ones. The older 2 are 16 and 14, her youngest is 9. My dad and his wife also have a 4 and a 2-year-old together. So one thing that I should mention is my dad's wife lost her first husband, the dad of the older 2. Her youngest was conceived not long after her husband's death. The dad of her youngest didn't want to know, and the girls never forgave her or got over her doing that so fast, and they hate my youngest stepsister. My brother and I don't hate anyone, but being honest, I see him differently to the steps and halves. I love my brother. I'd say he's my real sibling while the others are steps and halves. I guess I'd say I'm mostly indifferent to them. I don't dislike them, but I don't have their back always like I do for him. He's pretty much the same. Older steps don't like any of the rest of us and are hostile. The youngest step really wants her older sisters to love her. She doesn't really notice the rest of us, but it's very easy to see it breaks her heart when the other two want nothing to do with her and they treat her like she's disgusting. The youngest two are really little but will play together. My dad and his wife had this dream that we'd be a way closer family unit and that we would be more like an actual family than we are. Dad has talked to me about being the person who brings us all together as the oldest in the family. He told me I have such a good relationship with my brother and he wants us to have the same with the others. He asked me like a year ago if I didn't want that and I said no, which made him interact with me differently. This all brings us to yesterday. Youngest stepsister was supposed to be going to a birthday party. Dad was already at work. His wife was really sick. I had work too, but in the past I called and said I'd be late to do something for my brother. My boss is cool with stuff like that. Oldest stepsister was going to a friend's house and was passing the house the party was at, but she refused to take youngest stepsister. She left while her mom was trying to get her to take her. Middle stepsister also refused and left the house as well. My brother wasn't home and I left for work while Dad's wife was comforting youngest stepsister, who was upset my other stepsisters wouldn't take her. When I got home last night, Dad called me a jerk and he told me I could have taken her, and if she was my brother, I would have called to be late to work and then taken him. He told me I had the chance to really reach out and create a bond between me and her, and I didn't. And I showed him that I will always have a favorite and never try to hide it. He told me he's sick of the two of us sticking by each other, but not doing the same for the others. Am I the jerk? In my opinion, I guess really the question is, when you remove all biases, is it fair for OP to have an implicit favorite here? Should OP treat their half-siblings and step-siblings exactly the same as their full brother that they've always known? I don't think so, and not only that, it's not OP's responsibility to make sure they get taken anywhere. Even at 17, that's still kind of bullying your kid to try to parentify them slightly. I see them say, you could have really reached out and created a bond between you and them, and in my mind I hear, you really missed out on the chance of bailing us out and being backup parent for the day. OK Conversation 9750 commented, he told me he's sick of the two of us sticking by each other but not doing the same for others. Tell them to repeat that same line to the two evil older stepsisters. Why is it up to you? Why are these two older sisters, the evil ones, not being called out on their behavior? By the way, not the jerk. Your dad and stepmom created this mess. It's theirs to deal with. Swan Goose replied to that saying, I mean, it's a blended family. And not a very well blended family from the sounds of it. There's a reason why stepmom didn't talk to OP about this or even ask him to drop off the little girl, and likely OP's dad doesn't think it's his place to berate the stepsisters, for the same reason that OP's stepmom didn't talk to him. He only has control over OP, so that's who he talks to. I don't think OP's the butt for not loving the rest of his siblings or step-siblings like his brother, and his dad is overstepping by expecting that, but I can see why his dad is reacting this way emotionally. It must be tough to see a little girl being ostracized by her older siblings and to have zero control over it. I know I'll be completely downvoted for this, but I think it would have been kind for OP to just drop her off at the birthday party, seeing that she was upset. Sure, it's not his duty, but when you live in a household, you help people out sometimes when they need. I'm not going to call him the jerk for not doing it exactly, but his dad and stepmom also wouldn't be the jerks for not going out of their way to do favors and help out ungrateful older kids. I know the sub is going to yell that OP owes no one anything and that he's never obligated to do nice things for people he doesn't love, but in my opinion, that's just a sad way to live. Our next story is, am I the jerk because I don't want a friend to bring a guy into my apartment? A friend of mine asked if she could stay at my place because she was coming to town for a big party. Unfortunately, I was away at the time, but I told her that it wasn't a problem for me and that she was welcome to stay at my place. However, I also told her that the officer was really only for her, and that I wouldn't like it if she picked up a guy and brought him to my place. Of course, there is a reason for this, because I've known her for a long time and know that she likes one-night stands. That's completely fine with me, I just don't want that to happen in my apartment and on my bed. That may be prudish, but that's the way it is. Anyways, she's now upset and claims that she would have never have done something like that anyway, and that it was rude of me to suggest such a thing. She's also now found another place to sleep. I think it was okay to talk to her about what I don't want in my apartment beforehand. She now interprets it as if I think badly of her. Am I the jerk? Honestly, I think this is a situation of the truth hurts. I don't think OP's the jerk here, and they should have just been appreciative that they could have gotten a free room, not the implication as to the relation of what OP said they don't want happening there. You very quickly have learned here that this is not that kind of friendship where you can look at them afterward when they're all offended and say, "You're my friend, stupid, I just don't want that happening on my bed, alright?" Like, it shouldn't have been that big of a deal. Kimba the Tabby Lion commented, "Not the jerk. If you said this to me, I would say, I would never, and thank you again for the free room." I might be mildly aggrieved by the accusation, but understand there is no nicer way to set that rule. If, however, I'd been planning to hook up with randos in your place, then I might take the high ground and act terribly offended. I most certainly would get a hotel room. Actually, I would probably limit myself to randos who have their own place, but I guess she's more egalitarian and feels the indigent also deserve to get laid. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my mom that I hate her, and if she makes me move just so I can see her in person instead of on Zoom, I'll never forgive her? I posted a little while ago, but basically my mom and I ran away from my dad when I was 8, but she refused to divorce him, so we were homeless for 3 years. Then she and her boyfriend got arrested and I went to the hospital. I've been living across the country with my auntie for over a year, and I don't want to leave. I have my own room and there's always a lot of food in the house, and she never brings guys over, and she takes me on vacations and we do a lot of fun stuff together. Now, my mom is out of jail and she wants to be near me, but she can't leave the state, so she's fighting in court to get me moved in with her parents so she can see me. I have Zoom visits with my mom twice a week. She knows I don't want to move, but she doesn't care, so I just refuse to talk to her during the Zoom visits. My auntie took me on a vacation to my mom's state, and while we were there, she took me to meet my mom's parents, and I had to have an in-person visit with my mom. I didn't really like her parents, and I'd already was in a bad mood when my auntie dropped me off for my visit. I planned to do the same not talking thing, but my mom and the other lady kept trying to make me talk, and it's not like I can take my headphones off or mute them like I do on Zoom visits, so I told my mom that she knows I don't want to move, but she clearly doesn't care what I want since she's pushing it. I also told her that I hate her and I'll never forgive her if she makes me move, and if she wants someone to love her despite how crappy of a person and parent she is, she needs to get a dog. She cried and didn't talk after that. I didn't talk either, and the other lady kept trying to get me to apologize and explain how I feel in a more productive way. We went home the next day and she was late for the Zoom visit, and I'm pretty sure she was drunk when she showed up. Her parents also called my auntie and said she hasn't been going to work since my visit. Now there's a chance she can end up in jail again. If she goes back to jail, I think it means I get to stay here, but I also feel bad. I just wanted her to stop making me do the visits and trying to make me move. Am I the jerk? Man, this is a heart-wrenching story. I mean, it's so sad because you can tell it really did affect the mom, but the problem here is OP's not being listened to or considered in the least bit, and that's not fair. OP's definitely not the jerk, but man, I feel for them because this one hurts. DJ2 Supreme AITA commented, "Not the jerk. You told your mom the truth and told her what will happen if she tries to force you to move with her. I have to wonder, how old are you, OP? Judges often talk to the child and get how they feel about things. I doubt your mom can just force you to move with her, especially since she had you be homeless for 3 years and got herself locked up. Also, how come your aunt won't get full custody of you? Seems like she's a better caregiver than anyone else." Our next story is, am I the jerk for kicking my mom out of my wedding after showing up uninvited? I, 26-year-old female, have been estranged from my mom for almost 3 years now. I cut contact with her after finding out she stole $10,000 from me and put on over $50,000 of debt by stealing my social security number. She has always been very emotionally abusive, and she has tried everything in her power to split up my husband, 27-year-old male, and I before we got married. For these reasons and more, I decided not to invite her to my destination wedding. Last week was the big day. And about an hour before the ceremony, my maid of honor lets me know that my mom has shown up uninvited, meaning she flew across the country to knowingly crash my wedding. I had my maid of honor bring her to the bridal suite, then I spoke with her privately and told her that if she doesn't leave, I will make a scene and embarrass her in front of her entire family. She cried and gaslit me, but inevitably left. After the ceremony, several family members confronted me about it and told me I'm in the wrong and that I should have just let her stay because she just wants to see her first daughter get married. I know this wasn't the reason, that it was just a power move to reinsert herself into my life. Her side of the family has been blowing up my phone since, telling me I'm wrong and that my husband and I need to apologize. Am I the jerk? Opie's gotta be not the jerk, right? I mean, they uninvited this person for a wedding. Them flying cross country and showing up uninvited is kind of like the exact reason why they were uninvited to begin with. Cause that's the kind of person they are. Comfortable C2454 commented, not the jerk. She's trying to get back in your life and it sounds like you're much better off without her in your life. Time to go no contact with all family members who won't pay attention to the boundaries you have in place. Good luck, OP, and congratulations on your wedding. This next story is, am I the jerk for volunteering to help with my stepsisters for the wrong reasons? My dad got married 6 years ago. His wife's 2 daughters were 2 and 3 then. Their bio dad was out of the picture. My mom died 14 months before my dad got married. My parents had an ONS and were never a couple. So to clarify some things, I, 16-year-old male, don't feel the bond with my stepsisters. I do sometimes spend time with them, but that's more because they want it. I never want to hang out with them, and I don't enjoy it. But I know my dad wants me to be a good brother to them. He encourages me to spend time with them as much as I can, and he'll always say, call them my sisters, and looks disappointed that I only say stepsisters. But yeah, I don't really feel any closer to them now than I did 6 years ago. It's not that I dislike them either though. I know for them it's really different because they were so much younger, and even if I had any doubt because of that, they call me their brother, like just their brother, and each say that they have a brother and sister. Sometimes my dad or his wife won't be able to do something for one or both girls. Go to the park, walk to a friend's house, take them to grab something at the store, and I volunteer for it because I always get paid for doing it. It's one of the ways everyone is happy. I'm spending more time with the girls, which my dad and the girls like. I get something out of it, which I like. My dad only recently figured out that I don't do it out of love for the girls and a want to spend more time with them. And he's disappointed in me now that I was volunteering for the wrong reasons. He says it's hurtful and it's really going to hurt them in a couple of years when they realize I don't reciprocate their love. He said it hurts them to know that 6 years of being siblings has meant nothing to me. He pointed out that they were so little when they became my sisters, and he doesn't understand how I don't feel protective and caring for them by now. Dad figured it out because he joined in on some of my therapy sessions. Yes, I have a therapist, and pieced stuff together based on what I was saying. My dad keeps bringing it up to me and reminding me of how disappointed he is. Am I the jerk? OP's definitely not the jerk here, and here's the fundamental problem I have. If there was a sliver of a chance that OP would develop some kind of fondness or openness to having this brother-sister relationship with them after all these years, it sure as heck is not gonna happen with a dad popping up and saying, "Why aren't you doing this? This makes me so disappointed." It's like almost as if OP has a giant button strapped to their back that says, "Reset all personal feelings I have towards my stepsisters," and the dad chooses every opportunity to pop up and slam that palm right on that reset button. Plant Princess commented, "Honey, your father doesn't have a point. He doesn't even have the shadow of one. It's perfectly possible to not like your siblings, let alone step-siblings. Heck, there are parents who don't like their children but still care for them. The bottom line is, you can't force yourself to like someone even if they are family. You just can't. Your father doesn't seem to be able to understand this. What I also don't understand is why he's not seeing that, given your relative indifference to your step-siblings, he doesn't give you credit for still helping them and being nice to them. You have the maturity and wisdom of not letting your feelings of distance lead to ignoring your step-siblings. What do your step-siblings feel? They could just see your rather distant attitude as you just being you, that's all. Your father might be making this into a far bigger deal than it needs to be. Of course he's disappointed because something he wanted to see happen didn't. But that's not your fault. You're just not that into your steps. What's important is that you treat them the right way, and you do, and that's all your father can ask you to do. Sure, it can feel awkward when your dad tells you he's disappointed in you, but hey, his disappointment doesn't constitute an obligation on your part. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to clean up my wife's puke? My one bugaboo is puke, and my wife knows this. It makes me immediately need to vomit. My wife drinks very infrequently, like a few times a year max, but when she does, she is usually quite hungover the next day. We went to a Halloween party last night and I was the designated driver. She had a great time and consumed several beverages. 2 bottles of wine over the evening to be exact. We got in at around 3:30 a.m. and crashed. This morning, I was woken up to her asking for help at 8 a.m. She felt the urge to vomit, aggressively, but didn't lift open the toilet seat cover in time, so it went everywhere. All over the toilet, the floor, the walls, the garbage, etc. It's a mess. She asked me to clean it. I said absolutely not. So she shut the door and is currently trying to sleep off the hangover on the couch, waking every hour or so to puke again. I've been looking after her and did a pharmacy run for electrolyte powders, Pepto, etc., but I draw the line at cleaning up her puke again. I feel guilty because it's sitting in the bathroom waiting for her. Am I the jerk? I mean, it's definitely a bit of a difference between abandoning your wife and just not doing something that honestly, you probably wouldn't be able to do without just making the situation a whole lot worse, right? We definitely don't need it to look like that scene from Family Guy where they're all in the living room and they drink Epicac and it just turns into a horror scene real quick. Mobile Following 198 commented, not the jerk. It's not like she's sick because of an illness. She's sick because she drank too much. She didn't have to drink that much to enjoy herself. She can clean it up herself. And yes, she is a jerk for doing this and then expecting you to clean it up, especially if she knows you have a thing about vomit. Note, you would be the jerk though if she was vomiting because of an illness. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to let my mother-in-law redecorate our nursery? So I, 26-year-old female, am currently 32 weeks pregnant with mine and my husband's, Felix's, 27-year-old male, first child. Things have been going well, and one of the great things is that Felix is a builder, and so everything with the nursery went pretty smoothly pretty fast. We agreed at the start what kind of vibe we wanted to go with, and it's pretty much already done. Figured that we would get it sorted as soon as possible so it wasn't another thing to worry about later. My mother-in-law has always been a bit of a nightmare, but has been better since the news that I'm pregnant, though not without issue. For example, she told me that I should lose some weight and that it wasn't healthy for me or the baby. She knows that I used to struggle with anorexia, and I'm not any sort of unhealthy weight. In the past, I've kept my mouth shut and let Felix deal with her. As the nursery has almost been completed, she's suddenly decided to invite herself around more. I work from home currently. She comes in on the regular, asks me when I'm going to have lunch and, oh, you could just pop me something in too. And then we'll wander into the nursery and start rearranging things. I know this sounds stupid, but once she literally bought an IKEA bag full of stuff that she put in there. It doesn't match, but I've never really said anything beyond, oh, thanks so much for the thought, etc. Yesterday when she came around uninvited, she looked me up and down and said, really? Joggers? Thank God Felix isn't here. And then walked into the nursery and started asking me where the pillow she'd put in the crib had gone, why I'd taken out the fairy lights hanging on the wall right by it, etc. I explained that they were potential safety hazards to the future baby and that I'd taken them out. She started with, oh, well, I've had 3 children and I really think you should take more of my advice. And then looked me in the eyes and said, you're really not going to be a good mother at this rate. I don't know if it was the pregnancy hormones, but I just stared at her for a moment and then told her to get out of the house. I'd been up all night and had loads of work and wasn't in the mood. She got very uptight about it and then left. Felix says he's going to talk to her and tell her that she shouldn't be reorganizing anything without our permission, but I don't know if it was just the hormones and I'm being unreasonable. Am I the jerk? OP's definitely not the jerk in my eyes. I see this as like the classic sitcom evil mother-in-law. The only thing is, it usually seems to happen to the husband's mother-in-law. You know, all those classic TV shows where the wife goes, "Oh, my mother's coming over for dinner, by the way," and the husband starts screaming or rolling their eyes or going, "Oh, can't we just turn the lights off and pretend we're not home?" Trick Delivery 4609 commented, "Not the jerk. Felix needs to put down a lot more boundaries. No more popping by when he isn't around. She has to ask him to come over and can only do so when he says yes and he's there. No more talking about your health or weight, ever. No redecorating or moving anything in your house. I'm sure there needs to be more. This is to get you started with him. He needs to protect you and your child." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.